Quorum call.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 members present, the House is now in order. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, February the 25th, 2021.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to consider the journal, reading of the journal from the previous day.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Chief Executive, Supplemental Budget Number 2. The clerk will read the supplemental budget and the committee assignment.
Dear Madam Speaker, pursuant to the authority conferred on me by Article 3, Section 52, Subsection 5 of the Constitution of Maryland, and in accordance with the consent of the House of Delegates duly granted, I hereby submit Supplemental Budget Number 2 to House Bill 588, Senate Bill 491, in the form of an amendment to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Supplemental Budget Number 2 affects the previously estimated funds available for budget operations as shown in the following summary statement. Sincerely, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., Governor, referred to appropriations.
Clerk will read the bond initiatives and the committee assignments.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives Number 20, referred to appropriations. Introductory House Bond Initiatives Number 21, referred to appropriations.
Special Order Calendar Number 24. Clerk will read the first bill.
Household 126, Public Safety, Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund, Extension, Program Requirements.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Madam Speaker, all of my questions have been answered. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise for a question on the bill?
Yes.
I had hoped someone else would have been the floor leader. Can you explain what this bill does?
What the bill does is it says that if you are in a county that receives grant funding through the Pretrial Services Program Grant Fund, that the person who goes on pretrial, if they can't be charged a fee sheerly to go on pretrial. It doesn't say that they can't charge for services within pretrial. It says we can't charge you a fee to get in the door.
That seems like a reasonable idea. Does the bill do anything else?
That's what the bill does.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a different floor leader next time. Thank you.
Is there any other debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 126, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. 126, 126?
Okay. I need that, and you need a phone call.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker,
Third reader, number 21.
Calendar of third reading, House Bill number. Oh. Oh. Call the roll. Call the roll. Trying to roll it up here. There being 129 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 21. The clerk will read the first bill.
Household 135, pharmacist, administration of self-administered medications and maintenance injectable medications, Christopher King Access to Treatment Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 121 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 135, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Household 257, Maryland Commission on Civil Rights, Employment Discrimination Reporting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 257, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Household 397, Electricity and Gas Energy Suppliers Supply Offers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 92 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 397, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Household 419, Economic Development, Advance Clean Energy and Clean Energy Innovation Investments and Initiatives.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 92 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 419, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Household 429, Pharmacist, Required Notification and Authorized Substitution, Lower Cost Drug or Device Product.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 429, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Household 547, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Dental Prophylaxis Care and Oral Health Exams.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 547, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Household 969, Home Energy Assistance Critical Medical Needs Program, Power to the People Pilot Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 969, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 20. Clerk will read the first bill.
Household 319, Local Tax Relief for Working Families Act of 2021.
Madam Speaker.
is on third reading and final passage. Recognizing majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a quick question for the floor leader to make sure I understand this bill.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I come from Montgomery County, which, as you know, is a very low tax jurisdiction usually. But we are at the top rate for the piggyback tax. We're at 3.2%, right?
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
So under this bill, my county council would not be able to increase that rate, right?
Correct, they would not.
But in order to decrease the piggyback rate in Montgomery County, you'd be taking a pretty big revenue hit because, you have to increase it across the board for all income levels. But this bill would allow my county, if they so chose, to decrease taxes on working and middle class families and still not take the same revenue hit. Is that right?
Correct, they could target that tax relief.
So it makes tax decreases easier in my county. That's great.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate?
Madam Speaker,
Recognizing the gentlelady from Howard.
a question for the floor leader. So from what I just heard, Howard County is at the top rate as well. Is that correct?
That is correct, 3.2%.
3.2. And a lot of our small businesses report on a Schedule C, sole proprietors, and so they are paying this 3.2% rate. But if the county decided to tax differently and provide relief to lower incomes in Howard County, the only thing this bill could do in Howard County would be to lower rates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just to speak in opposition to the bill, while I appreciate that high-tax counties like Howard and Montgomery might be coming around to the idea that they need to give their people some relief, I wish that the amendment that I offered yesterday would have been adopted, because it would have assured in smarter, fiscally conservative counties like mine that any tax increases implemented under this bill would result in lower taxes for beleaguered taxpayers in the working class, senior citizens, and small businesses right now who are especially struggling to keep their doors and lights open. My county executive went out of his way to tell us at our delegation that even though he's one of the biggest champions for this bill, he couldn't promise that he would lower taxes on anyone. So because of those reasons, I can't support a bill that will ultimately lead to higher taxes in Anne Arundel County and other places around the state. I urge a red vote. Thank you.
Is there any further debate?
Yeah, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, question for the floor leader.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm
Wait. I did not. Who was up first? No? All right. Okay. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
I represent Baltimore County, and we are at the top rate for the piggyback tax of 3.2%. It's my understanding this bill would allow my county to decrease taxes on our lowest income families if the county council decided to do that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman.
I also have a question for the floor leader, Madam Speaker. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm well, how are you?
It's Friday. So my question is, when was the last time Montgomery County lowered their taxes?
That is not information I have readily
Okay.
available.
When was the last time Howard County lowered their taxes?
I do not have that information.
When was the last time Baltimore County lowered their taxes?
I'd be happy to get you that information.
Sounds like a really great bill, thanks.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just question for the floor leader. Would this bill give local governments the ability to lower the so-called piggyback tax on just a segment, say retirees or senior citizens, or is it just strictly on brackets,
It would be based on income.
just based on
level.
income?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you. I have a question for the floor leader as well, liking to follow up on the question from the first gentleman from Calvert County. If Montgomery, Howard, or Baltimore County wanted to lower their piggyback tax for low-income individuals. Are they allowed to do that currently in law?
They are not. This law would enable them to.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? It's not. Okay. Gentleman from the Eastern Shore in the Annex.
Thank you. I really don't have a question for the floor leader. I'm sorry I got here a little late. I just wanted to add for everybody in the body. You know, we just passed the Kerwin bill. The Kerwin bill is going to force Talbot County to raise its piggyback tax. None of the county people, nobody in that county understands that. They don't have any heads up about that. It's just wrong. This is Annapolis dictating what's going on in our counties. It's offensive. It's backwards. It's out of touch. And it ought to be rejected. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 319, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 395, Business Regulation, Home Improvement Contracts Deposits.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 395, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 504, Insurance, Impaired Entities, Delinquency Proceedings.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Call the roll. Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 504, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 549, Maryland Department of Health, Birth Registration, Gestational Carriers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 549, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 558, For-Hire Driving and Vehicles Requirements.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 558, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 605, Veterans, Behavioral Health Services, Mental Health First Aid.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 605, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 606, Electricity and Gas, Limited Income Mechanisms and Assistance.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
What is that? Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 606, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 641, Homeowners Insurance, Weather-Related Claims.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 641, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 3, Correctional Services, Parole, Life Imprisonment, favorable.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to move to special order this bill until the appropriate time on Tuesday. If there are amendments that people would like to offer, if they'd forward them to the Judiciary Committee, I'd appreciate it.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex on the special order motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was unaware that was going to be special ordered by the chairman. I withdraw my button pushing.
Okay, Dylan. All regarding the special order to the appropriate time on Tuesday, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered to the appropriate time on Tuesday. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 48, Criminal Procedure, Registered Sex Offenders, Entry onto School Property, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 amends the purpose paragraph. Amendment number 2 expands the locations in which a sex offender registrant is authorized to receive an education to include programs approved by a county board of education. Move the amendments.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? The gentleman from the Eastern Shore in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May the floor leader rise for a question.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm a contractor. I know there's laws in place that prohibit me from having people work on school grounds that have a criminal background. Would you be willing to hold the bill so I can review the existing law and see how it's compatible with what we're trying to pass here?
This has to do with people who were put on the sex offender registry who are seeking to complete a high school education, and it addresses their need to continue their education, but I'm happy to hold it to Tuesday. If you have any questions, I hope you'll be in touch.
Thank you. I'll be glad to do that.
The question before the House is to special order House Bill 48 to the appropriate time on Tuesday. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until the appropriate time on Tuesday. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 277, Criminal Law, First Degree Child Abuse, Continuing Course of Conduct, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 449, Family Law, Marriage Licenses and Records, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Okay. The gentleman from Washington County in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was just looking at this bill and had a couple questions and a possible amendment. I'd like to request a special order to the appropriate time on Tuesday.
Happy to see the amendment beforehand. The committee doesn't object to a special order to Tuesday.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Question for the House is to special order House Bill 449 until the appropriate time on Tuesday. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until Tuesday. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 477, Court Order to use a cell site simulator or obtain location information from an electronic device, procedures, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 489, Courts, Wiretapping, Misconduct in Office, favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds misconduct in office to the list of crimes for which one party consents to the interception of a wire, oral, or electronic communication is authorized in connection with a criminal investigation. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? The gentleman from the Eastern Shore in the annex.
Thank you, Speaker. I just have a quick question for the floor leader.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking for you, but all I see is me. I apologize. What is misconduct in office?
Misconduct in office is behavior that doesn't meet ethics rules. You're not abiding by the rules of the office which you hold effectively.
So who decides misconduct in office? Is that the judge?
A jury, the trier of fact, either the judge if it's a court trial, or a jury if it's a jury trial. Be presented by the state's attorney or the state prosecutor.
Okay.
Or I think also the attorney general might also do that.
Let me get to my point real quick. Does the bill enumerate what would qualify for misconduct in office?
No, it's existing law.
Could I ask that we special order this bill to the next session? for a possible amendment.
I live for special orders. I really do. Happy to handle it on Tuesday. Thank you very much. If you have questions or an amendment, I hope you'll share it with the committee. Thank you.
I will. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The question before the House is the special order House Bill 489 to the appropriate time on Tuesday. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until Tuesday. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1268, Legal Education Success Collaborative, established, re-referred to appropriations.
Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 1. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 218, Income Tax, Child Tax Credit, and Expansion of the Earned Income Credit.
Senate Bill 218 is on third reading and final passage. Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually have an amendment at the desk. It's a Senate bill. All right. 1 second. Sorry, folks. I forget the protocol here. Do I need to ask permission to read the amendment? Okay, just read it. Okay. Oh, the number. I apologize. So the number is SB 0218233929.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Okay. So this amendment, it's a very simple and very friendly amendment. What this says is that a refund may not be issued under this section to an individual who is an inmate, as defined in Section 1-101 of the Correctional Services Article. And then under that it says during the taxable year or when the refund is due to be paid to the individual. And let me explain. In the last 12 months, when the state is doing literally everything it can to help Marylanders with unemployment insurance, we uncovered a $500 million fraud in Maryland. Matter of fact, many of our executive leaders were included, their names were included in this fraud. Furthermore, in California, there was a $2 billion fraud from prison inmates who were requesting unemployment insurance while incarcerated. It's still ongoing. It's also been determined that on prison calls, prosecutors have actually listened to inmates talking about applying for unemployment insurance fraudulently in Maryland. So what this bill does is it requires the General Assembly to exercise their fiduciary duty for the taxpayers to ensure that we're not sending relief checks directly to inmates. I think this is something that we can all agree. It's a very friendly and simple amendment, and I urge the body to vote for it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Oh, there. Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would urge the body to reject this amendment. It's absolutely not needed. Under current federal law for the Earned Income Tax Credit, any wages that are earned while someone is incarcerated do not count towards the Earned Income Tax Credit. I have the information right here from the IRS website, and it says earned income does not include pay you got for work while you were an inmate in a penal institution. So this amendment actually is not needed. This is already addressed under current federal law, and I urge the body to reject the amendment. Thank you.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I stand to support this because my good friend, the floor leader, who I hear is not a lawyer, but she's a darn good politician, again, did not answer the question. You said wages earned while in prison. This is people who are in prison that could have earned wages prior. So this is just a check and balance. It's good policy. It makes sure that these frauds are not being levied upon Maryland taxpayers. I urge you to look at the AP article about what's going on in California. And I will also report to you that I've had someone that works in one of our prisons email me that he is hearing Maryland prisoners talk about these fraudulent schemes. I did, of course, send that off to the proper people to take a look at that. So within our own jails right now, we have prisoners that are working up schemes to fraud the system. So this is good government. This just says, hey, we know this is prone to fraud. Let's make sure that we're not sending money fraudulently to people who are in prison. I mean, we're talking about in California, it involved rapists, child molesters, human traffickers, and other violent offenders. So let's be careful with the tax dollars that we send out. I urge a green vote on this amendment.
The gentlelady from Washington County in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It is amendment number 4239.
Ho. Does the gentlelady want to speak on this amendment?
No, I don't.
Any further debate on this amendment? Recognizing the gentleman from
Charles County.
Charles County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the maker amendment please rise for question?
Of course.
Did you, in your amendment, does it define what an inmate would be considered?
Well, it says as defined in section 1-101 of the Correctional Services article.
Okay. Does that, so is there so you don't know?
I'm sorry?
You don't know what an inmate would be?
Well, I'm not a correctional officer, so.
Okay, so that'd be a no. So the second question was, and is there a term that this, cuts out? If I'm an inmate for 2 days, am I precluded?
So it says during the taxable year.
Yes.
So that includes, yes, any ratio thereof. And then also when the refund is due. So just to cover all bases.
So if I happen to get picked up for driving on suspended, I didn't know my license suspended, I get held for 60 days, I wouldn't qualify?
I mean, the broader question is, why are we rewarding people that are incarcerated with relief checks?
You're also a good lawyer, I see, because that wasn't my question.
I'm not a lawyer, actually.
So the question again is, so if I was locked up under those circumstances for 100 days because I did not have my proper license that I thought I had, would I not, under your amendment, I wouldn't qualify?
So your question is, if you're an illegal immigrant,
no, my
an
question
I-10
is,
holder, or any other I-10 holder who gets incarcerated, should you get a relief check? Is that what you're asking?
Not even. I'm C.T. Wilson. I did not know that my license was suspended because I failed to pay a traffic ticket. Ergo, I get picked up, and because of COVID, I get held anywhere from 15, 30 to 90 days, depending on my prior criminal record.
Would the gentleman please yield the floor?
What the hell?
For a question?
Sure.
The
Charles.
gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for you. In the scenario, I'm proposing a question.
I'll bite.
For
Go
the
ahead.
Senate, I'll answer on the amendment.
Arguendo. Go ahead.
Well, I'm asking you throughout the scenario if C.T. Wilson was incarcerated, and my question would be,
No use of member's name on
I'm
the
sorry,
form.
Madam Speaker, but he's the one that used his own name. Let me ask you, do you file on an I-10?
A what?
An I-10. This amendment deals with an I-10.
I understand.
Holder being in prison.
Sure, I understand, but...
so you wouldn't qualify for this.
Well,
no American citizen would qualify for this because they have a Social Security number. If you have a green card, you would also most likely have a Social Security number.
That's correct.
Does that answer your question?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to the maker of the amendment. So if I have an I-10, I get locked up because I did not know my license had expired or something of that nature. I'm locked up for 2, 3, 10 days. Are you saying this would preclude me from receiving those benefits?
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm trying to do is get to the meat of this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Speaker, I have a question for the floor leader on the bill. Unless
We
you
have
still have the floor.
Hold
Okay.
on, we have order here.
Okay.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex. On the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, on the amendment, would the floor leader rise for a question, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. So I just want to make sure I heard correctly. You compared the federal law to the state law. So does the federal law currently allow ITIN holders to get any child earned income tax credit?
That's correct. Under federal law right now, you have to have a Social Security number to file your taxes to qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit. But there are other places where Maryland has already decoupled from the federal Earned Income Tax Credit, notably in terms of age. Under federal law, people under the age of 25 don't qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit unless they're being claimed as a dependent. But several years ago, Maryland changed that in order to provide the Earned Income Tax Credit to young people who are living on their own and therefore should be eligible. So there are other past examples of where we have made changes relative to what the federal government does.
Right. So did the federal government give the ITIN holders any child income tax credit in the last stimulus?
I'm sorry, the acoustics are not great as we talk between these chambers. Can you repeat your question?
I said, did the federal government include ITIN holders in the last stimulus and last tax break? Did they allow people that have ITIN to use the child income tax credit to get the credit, to get the stimulus?
Under the federal stimulus, no. Folks who file their taxes using an ITIN were not eligible for federal stimulus checks.
Okay, so we're picking and choosing which federal law we want to follow and which way we don't want to follow. I just want to get a clarification because...
This on the amendment, gentlemen?
This is on the amendment. That was her response to the amendment, that the federal we're already doing it because the federal government is not doing it. So I want to be clear that we're just choosing when we follow the federal government, who we don't follow.
And I appreciate the gentleman's question. I will just note that except where otherwise specified under state law, we are following what the federal government does and how they administer the Earned Income Tax Credit. And in this case, it already is applicable under our state's tax credit that someone who is currently incarcerated could not claim the Earned Income Tax Credit using their wages from working.
So there will be no harm in actually passing this amendment to make sure it's a good government amendment, correct?
Well, it already is taken care of, but there would be issues in terms of actually having the comptroller's office fulfill this amendment should it pass, because they don't actually know. The comptroller's office doesn't know who is currently incarcerated. And as the delegate from Charles County mentioned earlier, if someone is held just for a few days and then ultimately released or acquitted, the comptroller's office just simply does not have that information. They would have no way to administer this.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning to the floor leader. I have two questions for you. I was on the amendment. I first want to ask this is for the floor leader from the committee, not the maker of the amendment. I heard from the good gentleman in front of me, that the only people who file with ITINs are non-citizens. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the individual taxpayer identification numbers are for anyone who does not qualify for a Social Security number, and that would include both people who are legally residing in this country as well as undocumented immigrants. It is a variety of immigration statuses that get encompassed within the ITIN program.
And it's sometimes even victims of domestic violence who have ITINs as well?
That's exactly right. There are numerous immigrants who are working their way through the immigration system who are waiting to get a visa or a green card because they were victims of domestic violence, victims of human trafficking, refugees, asylum seekers, etc., who are filing their taxes right now with ITINs.
So simply, it's not just undocumented immigrants?
Correct.
Thank you. I also want to ask a question. This amendment deals with inmates. Inmates also, by definition, include people who are being held who have not yet been charged and certainly not gone to court yet. Is that your understanding of this amendment as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll ask the maker of the amendment. You were asked the question by the good delegate from Charles County if you understood the definition of inmate and who this would apply to, and you said he should know because he's the lawyer, but you put the amendment in, and so I'd like to understand if you too were meaning to intend someone who's just being held for a day or two.
So I'll break it down. So if you are currently in a room with bars, this applies to you.
So not inmates. Okay, thank you.
And Madam Speaker, if I may, on the amendment.
Okay. On the amendment.
So, folks, I was hoping this wouldn't be a controversial issue. The fact of the matter is, in the last year, there's been a $500 million fraud in this state. That's not fear-mongering, those are facts. The fact of the matter is, in California, there is a $2 billion scheme from prisoners for fraud. All this amendment says is that we're trying to look out for the best interests of Marylanders by ensuring that we're not sending relief payments to people in jail. That's it. I urge the body to vote for it. Thank you.
Is there any further debate on the amendment? Hearing none, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call,
Ayes
Madam
have it.
Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. The gentleman from Baltimore County in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 743420.
Amendment number 1.
Move so we consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you kindly. Madam Speaker, when we speak about immigration policy, we most frequently speak about fairness. This bill, which started out as a child tax credit, morphed into a bill granting a tax credit to those who do not have a Social Security number. Said more clearly, the earned credit in this bill applies to immigrants with a variety of statuses, both to those who are here legally and, yes, to those who are here illegally. The current average income tax burden on folks to whom this bill applies is approximately $1,250. There are many Marylanders who wish that their income tax burden was that low. This bill provides a further tax credit to these people by expanding to them, to folks who have a relatively low tax burden, the earned income tax credit. For some, this will totally eliminate their income tax burden. And in fact, some will get money back. We are told this is a matter of fairness to those who some of my colleagues refer to as new Americans. Madam Speaker, what about our old Americans? What have we done for Maryland's retirees? In response to COVID, what have we done for retirees? In the 7 years that I've been here, what have we done for retirees? Maryland's retirees are struggling greatly, and this is not new to COVID. The cost of living in Maryland is skyrocketing, and it has been for quite some time. The cost of groceries is skyrocketing. The cost of housing is skyrocketing. The cost of gas and energy is skyrocketing. And what have we done for those who are in the least economically productive time in their lives? What are we doing for those in their golden years who, by nature, have more health-related concerns? What are we doing for those who, by nature, are on fixed incomes? We are doing absolutely nothing. I have brought this issue to the legislature for the last 2 years, and each time I have advocated that we need to do something to help lifelong Marylanders retire near their friends and family. Retire where they were born. Retire in the place that they have lived their entire lives. I have advocated that it's a matter of fairness that we do what most other states do and eliminate the taxation of retirement income. Every time I've been confronted with the same excuses as to why we can't do that. Well, that will cost the state money. It's just too expensive. And then this body turns around and uses the same exact arguments that I use for retirees to give tax benefits to those who have recently immigrated to our country, and yes, to those who are here illegally. I don't understand why we rush so quickly to provide tax benefits to those who have recently came to our country, who have very little tax burden. And yes, some of them who are here illegally. And we do absolutely nothing for those that have spent their entire lives in our state and are struggling just to make ends meet. These are people of every size, shape, and color. These are people in every one of your districts. And if we can support those who are here illegally, and we can't lend a hand to the most vulnerable Marylanders, I think it's just sad. And by turning our backs on retirees, I struggle to see what we value. Madam Speaker, this amendment strikes the taxation of retirement income. If we can support people who have recently immigrated to our country, and we can support people who are here illegally, we should be able to support those who have given their youth and given their working years to the people of Maryland. I move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The previous speaker asked, what have we done for Marylanders? Well, just 2 weeks ago, this body passed $1.5 billion in relief for Marylanders and for small businesses in this state. $1.5 billion. I think we're all very proud of our work in that legislation to help people who are struggling through this pandemic right now. It was the right thing to do. But that legislation, unfortunately, did not help all Maryland taxpayers, and especially not low-income Maryland taxpayers who are working in this state, often as essential workers, and who are contributing. They were left out of that bill, including U.S. citizens who are related to either documented or undocumented immigrants. That's who got left out of that $1.5 billion in relief. So the legislation before us today is to ensure that every Maryland taxpayer who is working and paying their taxes and is a productive member of our state has the opportunity to get a little relief. We'll also note for the body that the amendment before us is actually a bill, a separate standalone bill that is being considered in the Ways and Means Committee. And generally, we do not take amendments on the floor for legislation that is being considered through other vehicles. So I would urge the body to reject this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
On the amendment, please.
On the amendment.
Thank you. The floor leader mentioned about the previous bill that we had just passed for all Marylanders. I had a 80-year-old lady call my office, and she didn't file taxes because she's retired. Is she? Because what I was told from the comptroller's office that she was not going to get any relief because she had not filed a tax return last year. So by your statement saying that the elderly have been taken care of, is the comptroller wrong? Can you help me understand, please?
Good morning, and thank you for the question. So the Relief Act included a variety of ways of helping individual taxpayers. Some people may not have been eligible because they did not file their taxes in 2019, but they could possibly be eligible for 2020, which is the tax season we're in right now, and for 2021 and 2022 under the Relief Act. So I would say my advice to your constituent would be file her tax return right now, and she'll get a refund likely if she meets the eligibility criteria under the Earned Income Tax Credit to get relief right now as soon as she files her 2020 taxes.
So let me understand. So I'm going to tell an 80-year-old lady to file taxes. Okay, thank you very much. It doesn't pass the smell test. Thank you.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clarify, the good lady who I respect said that my concern was about what have we done for Marylanders. That is not what I said. I said, what have we done for Maryland's retirees? If you read the bill that we passed several days ago, there is barely any, if any, benefit at all for Maryland's retirees. The tax benefits in that bill do not apply and do very little for people who are just looking to retire in place that are on a fixed income. Their retirement benefits are taxed, which most states do not do, and that bill does not address that issue. And it does next to nothing, if anything at all, for Maryland's retirees. These are people, these are black people, these are white people, these are Democrats and Republicans. These are people who have varying levels of political beliefs, but they're in every one of your districts. And they're in your families. And it's going to be us one day. It's going to be our kids. And it's people who need support right now. It's people we've done absolutely nothing for. And it's people who we turn our back on again and again. Why do we have to fight so hard? And look, I respect it. We have a bill. The bill's been in committee for 2 years. If we have things we need to work out, I get it. But these people don't have time. And frankly, they're the most vulnerable Marylanders in our entire state. And I don't understand why we can't step up for these people. So I urge you, for your own people, support this amendment.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I appreciate the gentleman's advocacy for retired Marylanders, but let me just set the record straight a little bit. This legislature over the last few years has passed a number of provisions to assist people on, particularly retirees on fixed incomes. Those include increases in the tax exclusions for various types of retirement income, including retirement income related to first responders, retirement income related to military retirement. If a retiree is earning earned income of any kind, they are eligible for the provisions under the Relief Act. And, you know, so just to be clear, we have done and will continue to do work on making sure fixed income retirees are able to stay in the state, live in the state, because, you know, we should. But just to be clear about this amendment, first of all, this amendment in 2025 has a fiscal note of $850 million. It's not just a bill in our committee, it's the bill in our committee with the single largest fiscal note, okay? So to adopt this on the floor on the fly, frankly, I think would be fiscally irresponsible because we would have a huge hole to fill in the budget. You know, second, I would point out that this amendment makes no differentiation based on income. So this amendment is not just about retired Marylanders who are low income. It's about retired Marylanders who are doing really well, too. There's no differentiation in this bill. So I would repeat what the floor leader said, and I urge the body to reject this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
Gentleman from Cal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment. I think the majority leader brought up an actually excellent point. He said the amendment's fiscal note is $850 million. That's $850 million we're taking from people who are retired in the state of Maryland. That's immoral. It's wrong. These are people who have worked their entire lives, and they're now in retirement, usually on fixed incomes, pensions, other income that they can maybe generate, and they're still paying income tax on this retirement income. It's wrong. So I'm really happy the majority leader brought up the figure of $850 million because he sees it as belonging to the state. I see it as belonging to the retirees, just like the maker of the amendment. Because that's who the money belongs to. Everybody in this legislature knows, everybody knows that there is a mass exodus from this state of retirees. And it's such a shame because it's breaking up families. Grandparents have to leave because they can't afford to stay here and be with their grandchildren. It's immoral and it's wrong. I support this amendment. It is a great amendment.
Ways and Means will never move a bill like this, despite the representation of, we're considering bills like this. They've been considering bills like this for 20 years and have done nothing. I support this amendment. I'm voting green on it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I won't belabor this much longer. I just want to provide a couple technical points in response to the majority leader, who is a friend and I respect greatly. If you look at our tax code, there are exceptions for our military retirees and our police retirees. And we all love our military and our police. But if you went to an average person on the street in Dundalk or Essex and Edgemere and said, you know, we've provided retirement tax relief to our first responders and our police and military, they say, well, that's great. What about me? What about me? And the gentleman mentioned that in 2025, this amendment adds this language to this bill, which sunsets in 2023. So this is not a permanent change. And look, there is a cost associated, just like the cost associated with the amendment that gives the earned income tax credit to people who have immigrated here recently. Gives the earned income tax credit to people who are here illegally. So yes, there is a cost, but it doesn't even go to 2025. This amendment would sunset the same time that the rest of this bill would in 2023. Your retirees in your district would love your support, and I'd ask for your vote today.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no.
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Any other amendments to the bill or to its title? Gentlelady from Washington County in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I'm in the right place at the right time now. Thank you for your patience. I have an amendment at the desk. It is amendment number 423925.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Colleagues, I believe we have the opportunity today to do some very meaningful and important things that will benefit those who need help and are often overlooked. Hardworking people in difficult circumstances deserve a much-needed break. This amendment will do two things. The first thing it does, it extends or expands the child tax credit for developmentally disabled children up to the age of 21. As many of you know, my background is in special education. I have worked with developmentally disabled students and their families for many years. Many of these young men and women have disabilities that are so challenging that their individualized education programs grant them the opportunity to graduate at the age of 21. These students are still under the care of their parents due to their significant cognitive challenges and are dependent on their parents to take care of them. Ideally, this tax credit would not expire, but I think the first step would be to at least expand it to the age of 21. The second part of this amendment limits the I-10 portion of this bill only to those individuals who are lawfully present in the United States. There's a misconception out there that those of us in the minority party have a dislike or disdain or even hatred for immigrants or people who are not American. I see it in the headlines. I see it on social media accounts of several of my colleagues here in the General Assembly. I must adamantly dispel this misconception and encourage all of you to reject this grievous untruth. Disagreement does not equal hatred, and we do a disservice to this institution and to the citizens we represent when we sow division this way. My husband is an immigrant from Guinea, West Africa. My sister-in-law and my nieces and nephews are from Colombia, South America. When I am talking about immigrants, I am talking about my family. This is my family. Many of my colleagues here in the minority party are immigrants themselves, or they are married to immigrants. They have children and grandchildren who are immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws, and we have to stop incentivizing breaking the law. In 2005, then Senator Obama stated, "Those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law." We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, and unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, like my husband did, diligently and lawfully to become immigrants in this country. My husband and sister-in-law came to America to look for a better life. My husband went through the long and arduous process of becoming a citizen of these United States of America. There are so many immigrants going through this process now. And with this amendment, they still receive assistance. But those who are circumventing our laws will not. They are breaking the law and should not benefit from it. I will grant you that our immigration system is desperately in need of reform. The amount of time and money it takes to become a citizen is a travesty. But disregarding the law and incentivizing and breaking the law, as we're doing under this bill as it stands, is equally a travesty. I know I'm one of the new kids on the block here as a delegate. The day I took my oath of office was one of the proudest moments of my life. In that oath, I swore to uphold the Constitution and the laws of this state and country. This amendment would allow this bill to help people and to do so without incentivizing breaking the law. This amendment will allow me to keep my oath and still help immigrants, families, not unlike my own. I move the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge the body to reject this amendment. So the maker of the amendment mentioned that there are two parts to it, and I'm going to start with the second one in regards to the Earned Income Tax Credit. That portion of the amendment simply is not feasible to administer. The Comptroller's Office has confirmed with me that they do not know who is an undocumented immigrant. As has been mentioned repeatedly during this debate, just because someone has an ITIN number does not mean they are undocumented. There are plenty of immigrants with legal status in this country who file their taxes using an ITIN. And the Comptroller's Office simply has no way of knowing who is undocumented and therefore who would qualify for this tax credit should this amendment pass. And that's true at the federal level as well. The federal IRS administers the ITIN program. They do not know who is an undocumented immigrant. When you fill out the form to get an ITIN, there's no checkbox that says, I'm an undocumented immigrant. None of the information that the federal government collects as part of that program could you use to determine who is undocumented. So it simply would not be feasible to implement. Additionally, I want to remind the body that there are many Marylanders who live in mixed status families. About 300,000 U.S. citizens and immigrants who have legal status who live in our state, but who an immediate member of their family is undocumented. Right now, those entire households, including the U.S. citizens, are excluded from the Earned Income Tax Credit. That includes a lot of children in this state. So I would urge the body to reject this amendment because it is not feasible and it would actually hurt a lot of low-income citizens in this state. Thank you.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Delegate. I have no further comments about my amendment that I've already shared.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The noes
Roll call, Madam
have it.
Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
The clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 673221.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this amendment is also geared towards preventing fraud. And what it does, if the taxpayer filed an income tax return using an ITIN, the check has to be mailed. It cannot be direct deposited and cannot be mailed to the PO box. It has to be a paper check. I think the vast majority of this chamber, or everyone in this chamber, believes that we need to prevent fraud and we need to protect our taxpayers' money. One of the biggest problems that we have, the IRS had since the creation of the individual tax identification number, was fraud. Unfortunately, Maryland is very friendly to illegal immigrants. And one of the things that we have when you apply for a driver's license, all you need is 3 things. You need a passport, you need a 2 proof of residence. The MVA does not verify any of that stuff. You can pretty much copy and paste any BGE bill, any utility bill. Matter of fact, I've heard many stories from people, and those that can be verified, that the same bank account number showed up in the same day with 3 different people applying to get a driver's license. And the third thing is, which is the most important, is an ITIN. So if you go to the MVA on a Saturday, and I encourage everyone to actually go on a Saturday to the MVA, and you'll see how many cars are parked outside with out-of-state tags. Those people come here to Maryland because they can get a driver's license. And they can get a driver's license with their ITIN. And those people potentially could be the ones that my colleague yesterday mentioned, that there's 350 of them that they don't file the taxes. So that could be at least 350 that we pretty much know about. So what this bill does, or this amendment does, it would require any refund check to be mailed into a physical address with a paper check. And I move this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the maker of the amendment for sharing the text of the amendment in advance. I appreciate the courtesy. I would urge the body to reject this amendment. Right now, a lot of people get direct deposit for checks because it's easier for them, and it's actually easier and less expensive for the state of Maryland. If we adopted this amendment, it would actually cost the state more money and more person power to administer this tax credit than it does right now. So I'll be voting against this amendment because it actually will increase the cost of this program. And I'll note, for folks who are concerned about tax fraud, I hope that you'll support the piece of legislation that I'm sponsoring this session that would create a whistleblower program so that we actually are incentivizing people to come forward and to report information about people who are cheating on their taxes. So I urge the body to vote red. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County in the annex.
So she's coming.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker and body. I am coming before you to support the amendment in a very clean and sanitized box, and I appreciate the wait for my arrival. I would like to thank my friend from Anne Arundel County. As you could tell in his speech, he is also an immigrant, and so is my husband. My husband immigrated here in 2002 from a Muslim-majority country just after 9/11. In the height of anti-Islamic rhetoric in our country, he came here bravely and with almost no money, and he came here asking for nothing but a chance. He has worked so hard against all odds to succeed in this beautiful country that he calls home, that when he finally did become a citizen after many years, he cried while he took his oath, because that is how much this country means to immigrants. I love immigrants. I cried when our friend from Montgomery County told us her immigration story once on the floor. Those stories are so touching and so moving. But many immigrants, just like my husband, come here and they are not asking us for anything extra besides the chance that they are getting. Nothing. I have many friends who have been over the years of varying visa statuses. I love them all dearly. I respect them. I appreciate that they have made a financial decision to come to this country, even though they may not have all of the appropriate documentation to do so, because they still are believing that this country offers something, even with the risk they know they are taking. I support this amendment. I understand that there will be a small increase in the cost. I think preventing fraud will far outweigh whatever the cost is to mail a check. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to mention, I know I spoke about my dashing husband a minute ago. He is an accountant. We do a lot of accounting for small businesses and for individuals, many of whom are immigrants of varying status. So I'm extremely familiar with the ITIN process and the types of situations that those involve. There is a beacon over the state of Maryland that says, come here and get a driver's license. We get calls every year from people outside of this state who want to come here to get a driver's license, and they do so with great frequency. They do not live here. They have an address that many will use the same address over and over again. One of my constituents, her mailbox was used repeatedly over a decade by people who are in this country and do not have permission to be here. It is terrible for the victims of these crimes, by the way. Her mail was stolen every week, every month for years because of this. And they established their residency here. But now in Maryland, you don't even have to have your mail sent to that mailbox. You can pick a P.O. box. This is not a complicated amendment. This is not an amendment to be disparaging towards my friends who are here, who do not have the appropriate documentation to be here. This is to simply say, you must send the check to a Maryland residence. The idea behind these types of financial incentives are that people will spend the money in our economy, rebuilding what the government has decimated over the last 11 months. People who do not reside in the state of Maryland should not be getting our money. End of story, period. So, Madam Speaker, I urge the body to be a green vote on this amendment. It will hurt no one, it will help our state, and it will protect our money. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Montgomery County.
As the chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee, MVA is within the purview of my committee. We get briefed by them every year. And in none of those briefings, as I've been chairman of the committee for the last 7 years, have we received any testimony or any indication from the MVA or the Department of Transportation that there is systematic fraud taking place with respect to driver's licenses. I think it's important to say that the MVA and the administration is doing a very good job, a very competent job with respect to security and driver's licenses. So I really think that's a red herring. And then finally, well, I'm an accountant too, and all I can say to you is paper checks are so 20th century. Electronic transfer is much more secure. Please vote against the amendment.
The maker of the motion in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to actually follow up on my colleague, Mr. Chairman. The reason they, and you did make a good point, the reason that they haven't found it because it's very difficult to identify that there is fraud. The MVA only flags houses when they have at least, or addresses when there's at least 20 people or more. So with my communication with a lot of people at the MVA before today, putting this amendment, they've told me that it's very difficult to identify those thefts. And to your point, you're right, they haven't testified against this because it is very difficult to find it. So with that, I still move the amendment. Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Chair of the...
This administration would not be bashful about introducing an administration bill to correct problems if they thought they were going on, and my committee would be happy to pass them if such a situation were taking place. I think we should assume that the MVA in this administration is doing a competent job, and then, of course, vote against this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I hate to assume and have, just go to the, I invite the entire body to go on a Saturday to the MVA parking lot and you can see all that. But again, I think there's a lot of room for fraud, and this only guarantees that people that deserve to get that money get that money. Thank you.
On the amendment.
Madam Speaker, just wanted to propose Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary.
Just wanted to propose the logical question is how do you prevent fraud before you enable a bill that creates it? Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So there are a lot of protections already built into our driver's license program here in Maryland, and one of the pieces is that you have to prove that you have paid taxes in the state of Maryland for the last 2 years. And that is not the applicant providing that information. The comptroller's office directly provides that information to the MVA. There's no potential for fraud there. The comptroller's office is the one that is verifying that the person, the applicant for the driver's license, has paid their taxes in this state for the past 2 years. Thank you.
On the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose, no.
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Any other amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing on the bill. That's what I was going to say. Then is on third reading for final passage. The minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the bill, thank you for this opportunity to debate this bill, to have a lively discussion about it. And just to remind you, because we've had a number of good amendments, Senate Bill 218 is a bill that will give almost $200 million in tax credits and cash to people who file their taxes with an ITIN. The ITIN is a 9-digit number issued by the IRS to individuals who are required for U.S. tax purposes to have a taxpayer identification number, but they do not qualify for a Social Security number. ITIN filers are people who, some are here legally, and many are not here legally. ITIN tax filers absolutely include illegal aliens, and I hope that doesn't upset some of my friends here when I use that term, illegal alien. It's the term in the federal immigration law, and I do understand that the current administration may not like that term and they're trying to change it. But at this current time, that's the actual immigration terminology. We had an amendment that would direct this $200 million to legal aliens who must file using the ITIN. That was rejected. We had an amendment to give money to retirees who've been waiting for decades, and that was rejected again. So this current bill is a tax credit and cash payments to people who are here legally and people who are in our country illegally. The argument that illegal aliens pay taxes in gas and sales tax, etc., is true. But when we travel abroad, we also pay those taxes to foreign countries. I was fortunate enough in 2019 to visit my husband's grandmother's hometown of Gdansk, Poland. Spent a couple weeks there. They didn't offer me any of those taxes back. I don't think other countries give us that money back when we visit, as well as other states when we pay gas tax and sales tax in Virginia and Delaware. We don't get that back. Delaware doesn't have a sales tax, do they? So the crux of this bill is not just about taxpayers getting a rebate plus extra cash, but we heard last week when we debated a similar amendment on the Relief Act that it's about helping the poor. My friend, the majority leader, delivered an excellent, impassioned speech last week on this idea when we had the amendment on the Relief Act. I'll remind you that he brought his Bible to the floor and quoted from the book of Matthew. He talks about how when you were hungry and thirsty, you were given food and water, you clothed me. Of course, I took that to heart, as did many of you. And I looked at Matthew and other citations in the Bible, both Old and New Testament, that talk about charity to the poor. God-fearing people are indeed called to give to the poor, to feed the poor, and to be charitable. I'm sure you do just that. So many of us here in the Maryland House of Delegates give, we serve, we are committed to aiding those less fortunate. This isn't partisan. And I know it's something we all agree on. It's too bad we can't have a bill on that, on personal giving. I know it would be unanimous. The question is, do you give the money and aid from your own pocketbook, or do you take it from tax dollars? I contest that yes, in the strongest possible way, you give from your own resources. The passages in Matthew and other citations talk about the person, about you and me and others, giving to others of our own resources. This bill takes money from the government. It uses tax dollars to give relief to others. And what are those tax dollars? They are not mine, and they are not yours. They belong to the people we require to pay them. They are taken from senior citizens, people on a budget, working families, middle-class families, and small businesses. Yes, sometimes they are taken from rich people, but rich people are moving out of this state. Maryland lost $8 billion to Florida in annual gross income from taxpayers. You have to ask, what is the role of government? The entity that this bill takes money from to give to another. The great theologian Augustine said that government is a necessary evil, that it is necessary because of evil. And most theologians in the history of the church have said that human evil is the reason we need civil government. The function of government is to restrain evil and maintain, uphold, and protect the sanctity of life and property, to deliver justice, equal justice under the law. This bill is rewarding people who have broken our law. It's even encouraging people to come here. They have 3 years to get money from Maryland taxpayers. Fraud is real. A quick search on the internet will yield pages of mainstream media articles on documented and convicted fraud by illegal aliens. Why not when a person knows they can ultimately flee the U.S. and go back to their country of origin? American citizens, on the other hand, do not have that option. They cannot flee. Is that equal justice under the law? We ask this body to put limits on fraud, to prohibit the money from being mailed to prisons, to addresses outside of the state except for military. We ask to limit this to people here lawfully. There were no limits accepted, and no exceptions have been agreed upon. The case is to just consider poverty. God's concern for the poor, the vulnerable, and the weak is persistent, persuasive, and powerful. Little is clear in Scripture, Old and New Testament alike, that the duty of believers is to care for those in need, especially widows and orphans. Notably, however, the Bible does not put that responsibility on the state. It puts that on you and me. To be clear, this is other people's money. Yes, some of the $200 million has been paid into the state in income taxes, and some will be given to others that are above and beyond what they paid. Many will get checks for 3 years well beyond what they paid in income taxes. There are a limited number of these tax dollars. We do not print money. We have to respect other people's money. For those reasons, I will be voting no on this bill because this is other people's money.
Gentlelady from Prince George's County in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Body, today we've heard many, many things. Can you hear me now, Madam Speaker? Today we've heard many things, this body, but I want to tell you about my story. I am a new American, and I am proud to be one. My family fled South Africa in the height of the apartheid, where my uncle was killed. My grandma ended up in the United Kingdom, cleaning houses, doing all she could, and eventually they landed here in the United States. My dad is from Lagos, Nigeria. And as a first-generation American, I will tell you, you are talking about my brothers, my sisters, my neighbors, my community, and you're talking about me. ITIN holders are Maryland taxpayers. And being a taxpayer is not just putting your money, but putting your faith into a state and into a system. And they are here, and they are working, and they are contributing. And I want to tell you a little bit about one of my neighbors, Miss Santos. She lives in Hyattsville, a couple of streets away from me. She arrived in the United States in 2007 from Honduras with her son and daughter, both born as U.S. citizens. She has been working at a laundry, but in May 2020, she lost her job due to the pandemic, got sick with COVID in November, and was unable to isolate in her house, which meant her husband and 2 kids also contracted the virus. During those last few months, she and her family could only eat due to thanks of food banks and churches. She paid rent with loans from friends and caught the virus and was no longer able to. She is 3 months behind and is afraid her family will be evicted. Ms. Santos has been paying taxes in Maryland, and she plans to file her taxes again in the coming weeks. Mixed status families in Maryland are not only throughout our state, but also contribute $100 million in Maryland taxpayer money. And they're also my family, as individuals of my own family are mixed status. And I will end with this, Madam Speaker. As the line says, immigrants get the job done, and they've been getting it done. So let's, as a body, get it done for them. Vote green on this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, I'm listening to all the debate, and I appreciate the minority whip's comments. I'm a little more detailed than what I have, but when I just sit here, when I think about when Larry Hogan's slogan, Maryland's open for business, I really don't think he meant open for business for tens of thousands of people that are here illegally. If we can't separate the I-10 legal immigrants with the illegal immigrants, then for me, and apparently even some that have been incarcerated, a tax benefit to benefit those here illegally has done nothing more but promote further of this action in the future. So for me, these type of bills say that Maryland is a fantastic place if you want to come, even if you have complete violation of our immigration law. These are the same bills, I believe, that put strain on many of our public resources, overcrowd our schools, our hospitals, because again, you cannot deny the fact that bills like this encourage more illegal immigration into our state, which is the same issue we've had in our country. So for me, over the years, I've watched and learned what's going on down here. I mean, way before me, driver's license for people here illegally. You look at the sanctuary policies that are being proposed. I see child tax credit and expansion of earned income credit. That's a great title, but this isn't even about that. For me, I believe this is an illegal immigration issue. This will promote more of it. I cannot, as a citizen legislator here, promote that, so I'll be voting no, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss. Thank you.
Gentleman from Carroll in the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, a famous man once stated that, quote, people who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as those who enter the U.S. legally. Now, generally, if Chuck Schumer told me that the sky was blue, I'd probably ask for a second opinion. But on that particular quote that I just read, he was absolutely right. But that's what this bill does, either in whole or in part. And it was asked in committee, and I think here on the floor it was alluded to, how many folks who are here illegally will benefit from the largesse of the citizens of Maryland through this bill, and we were told that it was impossible to quantify. But we can bet it'll be a sizable number. And it was also poo-pooed, I might add, that when it was suggested that this bill may prompt even more illegal folks to come to the state of Maryland. But intuitively, you would have to believe that it could. But besides those philosophical objections, I have another which is really fundamental. And primarily it's the price tag. Essentially $200 million when people down here are raising taxes to pay for Kerwin. It makes no sense to provide folks here illegally with monies paid in by the citizens of Maryland. So I'll be voting red, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Montgomery and Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I rise in support of this legislation because it provides much needed relief to people who are too often forgotten when we talk about government policy and helping those most in need. This is the right step, this is the right move, and this is the right way that we recognize the contributions of people who, quite frankly, have been paying into the pot. People who we are now saying, even though you paid into the pot, we are not willing to help you. We are not willing to provide you any kind of relief. Instead, we're going to scapegoat you. And this is not only not right, but it is something that I believe we should rectify and will be rectified through this legislation. I once was an I-10 filer, and I heard a number of my colleagues talking about the immigrant community, and we heard very little from actual immigrants. And so I'm not just here to add my voice and add my support to this legislation, but to speak from the perspective of an immigrant, someone who saw this country not only as an opportunity, but contributed and gave a lot, just like a lot of immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, who continue to pay millions and millions of dollars every year in taxes. And I would add, they pay more taxes than the former occupant of the White House and the standard bearer for the Republican Party. And so now you're saying that the immigrants who have paid more than the last occupant of the White House are undeserving of relief in any kind of a way. And I don't know about you, but that's hypocritical. It's hypocritical because when you pay into a pot, you should be able to get something from it. And that's what we're doing here. This is a good bill. It is a way that we recognize the contributions of immigrants, undocumented immigrants, people who are essential workers, who are doing the work of providing services, essential services to the people of Maryland. This is a good bill. I'm proud to support it. And let's end this hypocrisy of trying to make it seem like immigrants don't contribute anything, when in actuality, the person who has been freeloading and have not been contributing anything or paying into the pot was the leader of the former, the occupant of the White House and the leader of the Republican Party. I urge a green vote, and I thank you all for recognizing immigrants. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, many of you may know that I migrated to this country when I was 5 years old. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. And before I was even born, I had family members who were in this country who were undocumented. Myself and my family, we've had many different statuses in the United States, from undocumented to green card holders. We've been I-10 filers, and we've always been productive citizens who've paid our taxes, just like the Marylanders who will benefit from this tax relief. One thing about COVID-19 is that it doesn't recognize boundaries. It also does not recognize immigration status. And there's so many Marylanders in our communities, our neighbors, our friends, our families, who are disproportionately impacted by this pandemic and this virus. There are constituents like mine, Lashana, who is Jamaican just like me. She migrated here in 2015, and she's paid her taxes ever since. Her family is struggling, and this legislation will help her to be able to pay the rent. Immigrant families in our communities who are tax-paying citizens deserve this legislation, deserve relief. And I will be so proud to cast my green vote for this legislation and urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I think all of us can agree that we've come in contact with illegal immigrants in our community, and every one of us has to admit something. They're usually some of the most hardworking, loving, passionate, kind people you'll ever meet. And maybe we should look at our immigration policies. But there's an unintended consequence when we continue to encourage and incentivize this. Every one of us, if we're honest with ourselves, has read what happens to some of these vulnerable children and women as they're coming across the border. I just happened to look it up. In Maryland, human trafficking, 3.0 per 100,000. BWI is one of the most trafficked airports in the country. That's sad to me. 63% of those people of Hispanic background.
Those, you want to talk about loving? What makes them vulnerable? Number one, if nobody really knows they're here. Their families know, of course. But if we don't know, that makes them really vulnerable. I encourage you, go talk to law enforcement. They see it. These gangs, they prey on them because nobody knows you're here. And if we continue, last year I stood on the floor. It's not because I don't love these people, it's because I do love them. I wish they could come here legally. I love the stories. That's what makes us great. But when we encourage these kinds of things and we want to look the other way at the atrocities and the pain and the horrors that these people go through, we have to take responsibility too, don't we? Because it's horrible. There's atrocities. It's sickening. We have to stop encouraging this. Last year I stood on the floor and did the same thing, not because I don't think they should be going to college, but we shouldn't be encouraging them with free tuition. And now we're giving out free money. I will set the record on one last thing, Madam Speaker. If somebody files an ITIN, all that accountant's got to do is put the child's social security number at the bottom, and they will indeed get the tax credit. So it's not that they're all getting cut out. But colleagues, I beg you, at some point, we got to be honest about this issue. Stop encouraging this stuff and encourage people to do what we are all sworn to do. I hope we can bring them here lawfully. I do. They're some of the hardest working people I know. But I can't stand when we incentivize some of this stuff to happen and we don't want to take responsibility for it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
As I recognize the gentleman from Caroline, we remind members our 2-hour limit and our time is limited as you make your comments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I wasn't going to make any comments at all until I heard these high-flying partisan comments earlier. This is not an issue about who cares more or less about immigrants. I mean, we all have stories. You know, my grandmother survived 6 years of Allied bombing, right? She did as a young child. She survived 6 years of Allied bombing. And if one of those bombs would have come any closer to her, I wouldn't be here. You know what? I'm not the only one to have a story like this. I'll bet each and every one of us in this room and in the annex has a similar story. We all care about immigrants. The difference of opinion is not all of us agree on federal law. That's the bottom line in this. That's literally the bottom line. So instead of making these incorrect accusations about any of us, caring more or less about our neighbors, the discussion should be whether or not the majority of us are going to encourage the federal government to change our federal immigration laws. That's the bottom line. If you all really want open borders and you don't agree with the immigration law and we want to continue to pass bills that are in conflict and aren't consistent with federal law, and the floor leader actually acknowledged that this bill is not consistent with federal law, then we should encourage them to change the law. We should, but we're not doing that. Instead, we're passing bills that aren't consistent. That's the argument that we're making here. That's the only argument that we're making. We don't agree with passing laws that aren't consistent with federal law. We care about the same people you guys care about. So I would fairly strongly encourage folks to not make these high-flying accusations that are absolutely, absolutely untrue. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Prince George's County who is in the annex.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I rise on behalf of the mothers and fathers in my district who work and earn enough to qualify for this earned income tax credit, and yet don't receive it due to how they file their taxes. I rise on behalf of their children, many of them American citizens, who've had to weather this pandemic without state or federal relief. No one ever wakes up excited to have to ask for assistance or to have to wait in a long line for free food, but for almost the entirety of last year, and still to this day, it's become a new norm for Maryland families. And our undocumented residents, these undocumented Marylanders, they've been going through it too. Today we have a choice. and I believe it's simple. Do we, the wealthiest state in the nation per capita, during a global pandemic, allow for a modern day iteration of separate but equal to continue? Or do we make progress and learn from the mistakes and shortcomings of our nation's forefathers? I, the great grandson of a sharecropper, am excited to be voting yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Charles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And colleagues, this has been years for me, true frustration, because, I hear a lot of times it's no longer African Americans, it's black and brown. And to me, I get frustrated because you're conflating two different plights and struggles. I can't be grouped in individuals who have a language, who have family, who have surnames when I don't. Sometimes it seems that this state and this country is more focused on illegal immigrants than veterans. So angry at being overlooked because now I'm just a black man. And I was listening to the minority whip, and she was talking about the Bible. And she stated that nowhere in the Bible does it say about the state doing anything, it's the people. And I thank you, because that actually changed my whole opinion on this. Because we are the people. If not us, then who? These aren't accusations, and if you vote against this bill, I will never judge you, because I know the struggles I faced. But in that moment, it reminded me as a struggling and stumbling Christian that I cannot turn a blind eye to suffering, struggling, to those without. Because my Bible says, love your neighbor, not love your citizen. It's very important for us to realize that if we can, we should, until we can't anymore. And as a Christian, I will be voting green on this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to share my story with you. I was born and raised in Lebanon. I grew up in Beirut. I witnessed car bombs, I witnessed missiles, I witnessed limbs on the street, I witnessed horrible things. And as a 19-year-old, I was given the opportunity to come to the United States. And I remember, as I was walking up the steps of that plane, as I looked at my hometown, and I wonder if I'll ever see it again, or what's in store for me, whether I'm gonna succeed, fail. And as a young boy, it was terrifying, it was scary. I got on that plane, and the only thing that put my mind at ease was that I was coming to the land of opportunity. I was coming to the land of the free. I came here in search of life, better life, happiness, and freedom, and most importantly, safety. I came here searching for the dream that one of the main reasons that I decided to run for office was to give back to the country and the state that has given me everything I have. You see, I'm not anti-immigrants. I just believe that we should come here the right way. And if we continue to give people that break the law, that are here illegally, it's a slap in the face to every single immigrant that comes here legally. And unfortunately, we try to put our amendment, we try to put a lipstick on a pig, unfortunately, and every single amendment that would have made it safer to really address the issue at hand, to give people that are here legally, was shot down. I will be voting no. And as a proud American, I will be voting against this bill. And I encourage everyone to vote against it. Thank you.
The gentlelady from Prince George's and Anne Arundel in the annex.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill for the following reasons. The families that we're talking about today, they have been suffering like other families. But unlike other families that we help because we care about everyone in our district, everyone in our state, they have not received any help during this pandemic. You see, they were left out of the federal stimulus package. And even though they work and file taxes in Maryland, some were prohibited from filing for unemployment because they do not possess a Social Security number. So they couldn't even get unemployment, even though their employers pay the insurance tax for them and they work. They also were not allowed to apply for social services, those programs that many of our other constituents can apply for. They have no safety net. They have no help. They're relying on nonprofits that are struggling themselves. Where do they go? The larger picture is that these families are making every effort to be a good neighbor. They're making every effort to be a good citizen. They also carry their share of their responsibilities on society. They pay taxes. They file. 86,000 of them paid taxes last year to the tune of $139 million. We take their money every year, yet we don't want to help them. Our state takes their money every year. Our state uses that money every year to balance our budget, to fund the programs that benefit our state, our people. They never receive any help. The question is, are we going to be generous enough in spirit to recognize the need of the family that are living among us? Do we have it in us to do it? In College Park, where I live, you can drive down Rhode Island Avenue and see a line of cars stretching for several blocks. People waiting to get food. I get calls all the time from families that can't pay their mortgage, can't pay their rent, do not have food. They don't have diapers. They don't have milk for their babies. These are difficult times that we're living in. These are extraordinary times that we're living in. These are difficult things to see and hear and to turn your back and not do anything about it. Should we turn away when we see these needs? Or should we do what people with a generous spirit will do, which is to find a way to help? This bill is fair and it's just, and I choose to help and not turn my back because they do pay taxes. They pay taxes. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore City.
Madam Speaker, I move the previous question.
The question before the House is to move the previous question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. On third reading and for final passage, clerk will call the roll. Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change a vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. There being 91 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 218, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. That ends the work at the desk. All committee bill hearings are listed on the Maryland General Assembly website. We will be coming back today. We got some other work to finish. We will be in 4 days next week, Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Quorum call for adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Everyone recorded their presence. Clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House recess to Friday, February 26th at 4 p.m.